Hello, welcome back to the tutorial series for Omega Game Framework, the best gameplay framework for Unreal Engine. Today, we're covering one of the things that make it one of the best frameworks for Unreal Engine, the Combatant component. The Combatant component is kind of the beating heart of most of your gameplay in Omega Game Framework, because it gives you access, it gives an actor, namely, typically a player-controlled or AI-controlled actor, access to so many useful things that are basically used across any type of game. Attributes, abilities, factions, inventory, equipment, XP leveling, and even a pretty simple utility AI system as well. And it's packed pretty simply all into one nice actor. We're going to start going over that actor right now, because it's a chunky boy, but considering how much it does, it's actually pretty refined at this point, I would say. So, to use the Combatant components, we're going to create a new actor. I have typically a character is probably what you're going to use, but I have the character class that I made right here. It's just a blank character class. This is the one I'm using for testing purposes. Let's go to Add and look up Combatant right here, the Combatant component. Now let's click on this. When you scroll down, you'll see lots of different things. And some things you don't need to worry about because they can be cleaned up, but these are a lot of its preset values. So if you saw it at the top here, you can have gameplay tags on this. You can set a faction, which I have some default factions for player, neutral, enemy, destructible, and ally. I can go over briefly how factions work. We're going to assign this to the player because this will be a player faction. But if we open the faction tag, you can give a name, an icon, color. You can give them a tag, and then you can assign hostility or faction affinities to other tags. So this is the player faction, which means he is friendly towards a player, hostile towards an enemy or destructible, and friendly towards another ally. And you have three states. You can be neutral, friendly, or hostile. These are just generic enum states. What you do with these states is totally up to you. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to set him as a player. Then we have abilities, which we'll go over in a second. You can also set a combatant data asset as kind of a source. To get source data for this combatant. That's more advanced, we won't go over that. A property bag, which doesn't do a lot right now, so we'll ignore that. You have some flags, which I won't go over now because they actually still need a bit of work. But next thing, attributes. Everyone's favorite attributes. Attributes are things like HP and MP, strength, defense. We'll go over those more in the attribute tutorial. We're just covering the combatant generally right now. You'll see these here. In order to use them, you'll need to set up an attribute set, which shows what your attributes are, how they're modified. You have a baseline level for the combatant. You can also override what its max attributes are. You can also decide whether you want to be able to damage attributes right now. By default, you can. Attribute value categories, levels, complex stuff. Combatant data. Now, this is useful because this is actually an easy way you can save data to and from the save game. I showed you in the save tutorial, which you should check out if you haven't already, what are called entities. So if I go ahead and do entity, say get entity from WID, for example, this allows you to save data to and from the save game based on a specific entity. Well, a combatant, you can assign an entity ID to it and then tell it you want it to save to the save game. Right now, the combatant can only save to the save game or store it locally. So, for example, if I open up this, I have all the entity data for the combatant, and this is locally stored. Things like what its current attribute values are, what its inventory and skills are, some tags for it. If I use entity ID, though, you will see this becomes disabled because we're now no longer writing to this. We're instead writing to its entity ID in the save game. And from there, you can choose, you can assign it a data asset, or you can choose to use a name or a GUID instead. For simplicity, and actually, if I go to this, set ID, you can just go ahead and set whatever its ID is here as well. So like say, this is in fact, actually, yeah, this is a good way of doing it. This is the player character, and we want to save the player character's information to the save game. I would just do something like, we'll go here, and we'll say player. Now, a better option, especially if you want to have any sort of multiplayer, would be you want to write it based on the player's index, but this is a way you can do it. And so in this case, data will be loaded and gotten and written from the save game directly. And that's super easy, where you don't need to do any cross-validation. It just writes right to the save game whenever you do things like damage attributes, add skills, any of that stuff. Modifiers, these actually are toggles that allow you what sort of modifications you can make, which relies on the combatant interface, which I'll go over, I guess, after I'm done with this. Disabling abilities, disabling effects. I think that some of that stuff needs to be cleaned up. But then Combatant AI. This is another cool feature. Combatants, when we get into using abilities, which will be in the, I think, not the next tutorial, that'll be attributes, but then abilities, which work like gameplay abilities. You can assign them through here, create and assign them through here. Combatant AI is essentially a simple utility AI system for allowing this pawn, this actor, automatically decide what abilities to use on a timer. So it's a very simple AI system, and honestly, that's actually what most games need. In the tutorials or in the templates I already have out for the Boomer Shooter and for 3D Platformer, this is actually the AI system I use rather than state trees or blackboards, because it's much simpler and it uses the same system we already use. We'll go over that after the abilities. Now, important thing when using combatants is there's often times where you want to add modifiers to your different stats and attributes and elements of your combatant, such as adding on equipment. Well, then you want to be able to modify what its attributes are, or perhaps there's just some system that you have active that can modify how damage works for the specific game. Well, in order to do that, what you'll need to do is just decide, let's take this test input. No, let's make a new one. We'll call it, no. We'll say test com mod. So a test combatant modifier. Let's open up this actor. And let's give it an interface called combatant data interface combatant. This one, not this one, not this one, data interface underscore combatant. This is the combatant modifier interface. And there you see the functions that allow you to tap into whatever with the different functionality of this. I'll go into these more when I cover each thing. But let's say for right now, let's get skills. And we will say make an array and add this to our skills. We'll grab out this and we'll say get all skills. This is not something to normally run on tick. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. Nope. We'll just say get a copy, print string, and that'll print how many scalars we have. We'll do kind of a green color for it now. So if I go ahead and hit play on this, hang on. Oh, sorry, it's getting the first, not the number, it's getting the first instance, and because I have no skill, see, it's not printing anything out. So for the modifiers, all I have to do is get the modifier, which in this case we're going to use a soft reference to the actor. Oh, drop it in, of course. Or reference the resolve. Then you'll want to get a combatant and say set source master. This name might be changed because this is actually a relic of the old version. But basically, you want to set a source, a modifier source. It can be any object at all as long as it has that interface. So you just plug that right in, hit active, and then on begin play, we'll add it. And there, you'll see that skill we gave, it's showing that it's available now. And that is the most basic information regarding the combatant components. But we're going to, after this, in the next video, start going over the more specific features of the combatant, because that's where it gets really interesting. So attributes are up next. We'll talk to you then.